Marcus Hale slammed a thick document onto the glass table. The sound echoed through the room. Elena Brooks flinched. What is that?" she asked slowly. Marcus leaned back in his chair, calm and composed. "That," he said, tapping the paper, "is the contract you signed 1 year ago." Elena frowned. "What contract?" Marcus pushed the document toward her. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. Her eyes moved across the page. Then they stopped. Her breathing changed. "Contract marriage agreement duration, 1 year." Elena looked up quickly. "No, this can't be right." Marcus folded his arms. "Today makes exactly 1 year." Elena stared at him. "But we're married?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. "We're married." Silence swallowed the room. Elena shook her head slowly, like someone trying to wake up from a nightmare. "You're joking." Marcus gave a small laugh. "I don't joke about legal agreements." Elena's voice began to shake. "This isn't an agreement. This is our marriage." Marcus leaned forward. "That's where you're mistaken." He tapped the document again. "This marriage was always an agreement." Elena's throat tightened. "You love me." Marcus looked at her for a moment. Then he said the words calmly. "No, Elena, I don't." The words hit like a hammer. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. "But I gave you everything," she whispered. Marcus shrugged. "And thanks to that, my company is now worth hundreds of millions." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "So you just used me?" Marcus answered, without hesitation. "You signed the contract." Elena shook her head frantically. "I would never sign something like this." Marcus pointed to the bottom of the page. "That's your signature." Elena looked down. Her name, her handwriting, her signature. Her hands began to tremble. How did this happen?" Marcus walked toward the window. "You signed it during the celebration of my first major investment deal." Elena's mind raced. The celebration, the wine, the music. Everything after the third glass had been blurry. Her eyes widened slowly. "You got me drunk." Marcus didn't deny it. Elena's voice rose. "You tricked me." Marcus turned around. "You were careless." Elena slammed the document on the table. "You manipulated me." Marcus's voice suddenly sharpened. "And you deserved it." Elena froze. "What?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "You think I forgot what your family did?" Elena blinked in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Marcus walked closer. "My brother." Elena frowned. "What about him?" Marcus's eyes burned with anger. "He died because of your grandfather." Elena stared at him. "That's not true." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "My mother told me everything." Elena shook her head. "My grandfather would never." "Enough," Marcus snapped. He pointed at the contract. "This marriage was justice." Elena felt her legs weaken. "You married me just to hurt me?" Marcus nodded once. "Yes." Tears rolled down Elena's face. "So what happens now?" Marcus checked his watch. "Now the contract expires." Elena looked down at the paper again. Then she saw another line. Her heart dropped. "No alimony." Her voice cracked. "You're leaving me with nothing." Marcus shrugged. "You lived in my house for a year." Elena looked at him in disbelief. "That was my home." Marcus's voice turned cold. "It was my house," Elena whispered. "You destroyed my life." Marcus walked toward the door. "You destroyed my brothers." Elena's voice broke. "That wasn't my family." Marcus stopped at the doorway, but he didn't turn around. "Elena," he said quietly, "you loving me was your biggest mistake." Then he walked out. Elena stood there, alone, holding the contract that had just erased her entire life. If you're enjoying this story so far, take a quick moment to support the channel. Hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next powerful story. And I'm always curious to know where our viewers are watching from. Drop a comment below and tell me your country or city. Also, stay with this story until the end, because the man who just destroyed Elena's life will one day realize that losing her was the worst mistake he ever made. Now, let's go back to the beginning of how everything started. About a year earlier, Elena Brooks lived a quiet life in Los Angeles. She worked at the front desk of a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. It wasn't a glamorous job, but Elena liked it. She liked the routine. She liked greeting people. Most of all, she liked the feeling that life was simple. That was before Marcus Hale walked through the glass doors one Tuesday afternoon. The moment Elena looked up from her computer, she noticed him. Tall, sharp suit, confident stride. He walked straight to the desk. "Good afternoon," he said. Elena smiled politely. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "I'm here to meet Mr. Patterson." Elena checked the schedule. "Marcus Hale?" He nodded. "That's me." Elena picked up the phone. "I'll let him know you're here." Marcus sat in the waiting area, but before heading to the meeting room, he glanced back at Elena. For some reason, she caught his attention. 40 minutes later, the meeting ended. Marcus walked out of the conference room. Instead of heading for the exit, he stopped at Elena's desk. "You're Elena, right?" She looked surprised. "Yes." Marcus smiled slightly. "You were the only person in this building who didn't look miserable." Elena laughed. Consulting offices tend to have that effect. Marcus leaned lightly on the desk. "Do you take lunch breaks?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Sometimes." Marcus pointed toward a cafe across the street. "Good, because I'd like to buy you lunch tomorrow." Elena blinked. "Why?" Marcus met her eyes. "Because I think you're interesting." Elena felt her cheeks warm. She hesitated. Then she smiled. "Okay." She had no idea that saying yes to that lunch would change everything. The next afternoon they met at the cafe Marcus had pointed out. Marcus arrived first. Elena walked in a few minutes later. Marcus stood when he saw her. "Right on time," he said. Elena sat down. "You sounded confident yesterday." Marcus smiled. "I usually am." The waiter brought menus, but Marcus barely looked at his. Instead, he asked Elena, "So, how long have you worked at that office?" 3 years. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's impressive." "Why?" "Most people leave after 6 months." Elena laughed. "I guess I'm stubborn." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Stubborn people succeed." Elena studied him. "You sound like someone who knows a lot about success." Marcus leaned back. "I plan to." Elena tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Marcus smiled. "I'm building something big." Elena folded her arms curiously. "A company?" Marcus nodded. "A technology logistics company." "Is it successful?" Marcus's eyes lit up. "It will be." Elena laughed. "You're very confident." Marcus shook his head. "Not confident." He leaned forward slightly. "Certain." That was the first time Elena noticed how intense his ambition was. Over the next few weeks, Marcus kept returning. Sometimes for lunch. Sometimes just to say hello. Sometimes he waited outside the building after Elena finished work. And slowly, without even realizing it, Elena began to look forward to seeing him. One evening, Marcus walked her to her car. Before she could get in, he spoke. "Elena." She turned. "Yes?" Marcus hesitated for a moment. Then he said quietly, "I want you to be part of my life." Elena felt her heart skip. "What do you mean?" Marcus smiled. I mean, I want us to be together." Elena stared at him. Then she smiled. And that was the beginning of everything. Neither of them knew it yet, but the love story that had just begun would eventually turn into a war neither of them was prepared for. Over the next few months, Marcus became a constant presence in Elena's life. He showed up after work. He took her out to dinner. Sometimes they would simply walk through the city at night while Marcus talked endlessly about his plans. Elena quickly learned that Marcus Hale was a man driven by ambition. "I'm not interested in being average," he told her one evening as they sat on a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. Elena smiled. "Most people would be happy just being comfortable." Marcus shook his head. "Comfort is dangerous." "Why?" "Because the moment you become comfortable, you stop chasing greatness." Elena watched him carefully. "You really believe that?" Marcus met her eyes. "Yes." Elena laughed softly. "Well, when you become one of those powerful billionaires you talk about, don't forget the people who knew you before all that." Marcus studied her for a moment. Then he said quietly, "I could never forget you." That night, he kissed her for the first time. Their relationship moved quickly after that. Marcus started spending most nights at Elena's apartment. He told her everything about his company, the struggles, the investors he was trying to convince, the risks he was taking, and Elena listened to all of it. Whenever Marcus doubted himself, she encouraged him. Whenever he felt frustrated, she reminded him why he started. "You're going to succeed," she told him one night while they sat on her couch. Marcus sighed. "I hope you're right." Elena nudged him. "I don't hope. I know." Marcus smiled. "That's why I like you." Months passed, and then something unexpected happened. Elena's father passed away. The news shattered her. She and her father had always been close. For days, Elena could barely function. Marcus stayed by her side the entire time. He handled phone calls. He helped arrange the funeral. He even dealt with paperwork Elena didn't have the strength to look at. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the funeral, Elena sat quietly in her living room when her father's lawyer arrived. The older man placed a folder on the table. "Elena, your father left something for you." Elena sighed. "He didn't have much." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "He had more than you realized." Elena opened the folder. Her eyes widened. $5 million. She stared at the number in disbelief. This has to be wrong." The lawyer shook his head. "It's correct." Elena leaned back slowly. "My dad never told me about this." "He invested wisely." Elena sat there in stunned silence. That evening she told Marcus. They were sitting in her apartment kitchen when she handed him the document. Marcus read it once, then again. Then he looked up at her. $5 million? Elena nodded. "I didn't even know he had that kind of money." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "That's incredible." Elena shrugged. "I guess he wanted me to be secure." Marcus looked thoughtful. "What are you planning to do with it?" Elena shrugged again. "I don't know yet." Marcus hesitated. "There is something I've been working on." Elena smiled. "Your company?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes." Elena waited. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "If I had more capital, the company could expand faster." "How much capital?" Marcus paused. "A lot." Elena raised an eyebrow. "How much is a lot?" Marcus exhaled slowly. $5 million would completely change everything. Elena blinked. "You're serious?" Marcus nodded. "With that investment, we could open 2 new offices, hire engineers, expand operations." Elena listened quietly. Then she asked, "Why didn't you ask me?" Marcus shook his head immediately. "Because that's your inheritance." Elena studied him. "You really believe your company will succeed?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I know it will." Elena leaned back in her chair. "You're that sure?" Marcus nodded. "Yes." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "You once told me that stubborn people succeed." Marcus smiled slightly. "I did." "Well," Elena said gently, "I'm stubborn too." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Elena looked at him. "I want to invest in your company." Marcus stared at her. "You're joking." Elena shook her head. "No." Marcus leaned forward quickly. "Elena, that's your entire inheritance." "I know." "You could buy a house with that." Elena smiled. "I already have a place to live." Marcus shook his head. "This is too much." Elena met his eyes. "You're the man I plan to marry someday." Marcus froze. Elena continued softly. "If we're building a future together, then your dream is my dream too." Marcus looked at her silently. "You trust me that much?" Elena nodded. "Yes." Marcus slowly reached across the table and held her hand. "You won't regret this." Within 3 months of that investment, Marcus's company began growing rapidly. New investors appeared. New partnerships formed. The company's value multiplied. Marcus moved into a larger office. Soon after that, he bought a massive house in the hills of Los Angeles. And one evening, he took Elena there. She stepped inside and looked around in awe. "Marcus, this place is huge." Marcus smiled. "It's our home." Elena looked at him. "Our home?" Marcus nodded. "You're moving in." Elena laughed. "You didn't even ask." Marcus shrugged. "I knew the answer." Elena wrapped her arms around him. I'm proud of you. Marcus hugged her back. None of this would exist without you. For a long time, Elena believed those words. She believed they were building something together. But there were things Elena didn't know. Things Marcus never told her. Things that had started long before he ever walked into that consulting office. And those secrets were slowly moving closer to the surface. Secrets that would eventually destroy everything Elena believed about the man she loved. Marcus's company continued growing faster than anyone expected. Within months, his name began appearing in business magazines. Investors started calling him a visionary. Television interviews followed. Elena watched one of those interviews from the living room of the mansion Marcus had bought. The host smiled at Marcus on the screen. Your company has grown incredibly fast. What do you think made that possible? Marcus smiled confidently. Belief. The host laughed. Belief? Marcus nodded. Yes. When you believe in your vision, people start believing in it too. Elena smiled proudly from the couch. That's my Marcus, she whispered. Later that evening, Marcus returned home. Elena walked into the kitchen carrying a tray of food. You're finally back, she said. Marcus loosened his tie. Long day. Elena placed the tray on the table. I made your favorite. Marcus sat down. You didn't have to do that. Elena smiled. You say that every time. Marcus took a bite. Immediately, his expression softened. This is perfect. Elena laughed. I know. Marcus shook his head. I swear your cooking is better than most restaurants. Elena sat across from him. Maybe I should open a restaurant. Marcus chuckled. You'd make a fortune. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression changed slightly. Elena noticed. Business again? Marcus nodded. Always. Elena sighed playfully. One day your company will calm down. Marcus shook his head. No, it won't. Elena smiled. Then I guess I'll have to keep feeding you forever. Marcus looked at her for a moment, but he didn't reply. Instead, he picked up his phone and stood up. I need to take this call. Elena watched him walk away. Something about the moment felt strange. Marcus stepped into his office and closed the door. He answered the call. Hello. A woman's voice spoke on the other end. Marcus, it's your mother. Marcus's expression hardened slightly. Mom, have you seen the latest article about your company? Yes. You're becoming very powerful. Marcus said nothing. Then she asked quietly, Is the girl still living with you? Marcus sighed. Yes. There was a pause. Then his mother said, You shouldn't forget what her family did. Marcus's jaw tightened. I haven't. Good, she replied. Because your brother is still dead. Marcus looked out the window. I know. His mother's voice became cold. Your brother trusted the wrong people. Don't make the same mistake. Marcus replied quietly. I won't. After the call ended, Marcus stood there, staring at the city lights. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he walked back into the living room. Elena looked up at him. Everything okay? Marcus forced a small smile. Just business. Elena nodded. Come sit with me. Marcus sat beside her on the couch. Elena rested her head on his shoulder. One day, she said softly, we'll look back at all this and laugh. Marcus stared straight ahead. Maybe. Months passed. Marcus became busier, more distant. He traveled often. Sometimes he returned home late at night without saying much. Elena noticed the change, but she tried not to worry. Building a powerful company required sacrifice. One evening she finally asked him. They were sitting in the living room when she spoke. Marcus, can I ask you something? Marcus looked up from his laptop. What is it? You've been different lately. Marcus frowned slightly. Different how? You barely talk anymore. Marcus sighed and closed the laptop. Elena, I'm running a major company now. My schedule is insane. I understand that. Then why are we having this conversation? Elena hesitated. I just miss you. Marcus rubbed his temples. I'm right here. That's not the same. Marcus leaned back. Elena, success requires focus. I know. Then please don't make this harder. Elena looked down quietly. I'm not trying to. Marcus stood up. I have another call. Elena watched him walk away again. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Something wasn't right, but she didn't know what. Then came the night Marcus told her they should celebrate. He arrived home carrying an expensive bottle of wine. Elena looked surprised. What's the occasion? Marcus grinned. We just secured our biggest investment yet. Elena hugged him. That's amazing. Marcus walked to the kitchen. Tonight, we celebrate properly. Elena laughed. Finally, a night off from work. Marcus poured 2 glasses of wine. To success, he said. Elena raised her glass. To our future. They drank. Then, another glass. Then another. Music played softly in the background. Elena felt relaxed, happy, proud of everything they had accomplished together. Marcus watched her carefully. After a while, he placed a stack of documents on the table. What's that? Elena asked, her words slightly slower now. Just some paperwork. Elena laughed. Right now? Marcus smiled. It's nothing complicated. Elena leaned closer to the papers, but the words looked blurry. I can barely read straight. Marcus handed her a pen. It's just confirmation documents for your investment. Elena smiled lazily. You already know you can use the money. Marcus nodded. I know. This just makes it official. Elena giggled. You business people. And your paperwork. Marcus pushed the pages toward her. Just sign where the tabs are. Elena picked up the pen. Her vision was slightly spinning. She signed 1 page. Then another. Marcus calmly flipped through the stack. Just a few more. Elena signed again and again. When she finished, Marcus gathered the documents neatly. Perfect, he said quietly. Elena leaned back in her chair. I think I drank too much. Marcus smiled faintly. Yes, you did. Elena laughed. You're lucky I trust you. Marcus looked at the papers in his hand. Then he said softly, I know. Hidden between those pages was a document Elena never noticed. A document that turned their marriage into something temporary. A 1-year contract. And by the time Elena would discover it, it would already be too late. The next morning, Elena woke up with a pounding headache. Sunlight poured through the large windows of the bedroom. She groaned softly and rubbed her temples. Marcus, she muttered. Marcus was already dressed, standing near the mirror, adjusting his cufflinks. Rough morning? He asked casually. Elena sat up slowly. I feel like I drank an entire vineyard. Marcus chuckled lightly. You insisted on celebrating. Elena squinted at him. Did we actually finish that whole bottle? Marcus smiled. And half of another. Elena groaned again. Never let me do that again. Marcus picked up his watch. You signed a few company documents, too. Elena blinked. I did? Marcus nodded. Just confirming your investment. Elena waved her hand dismissively. Good. Less paperwork later. Marcus looked at her for a moment. Then he said calmly, Exactly. He kissed her forehead and headed for the door. Try to get some rest. Elena fell back onto the pillow. She had no idea that the paper she signed the night before would come back to destroy her life. Over the next year, Marcus's empire expanded faster than anyone predicted. His company secured massive contracts. New offices opened across several cities. Business magazines called him one of the fastest rising entrepreneurs in the country. Every time Elena saw Marcus on television, she smiled with pride. That's my husband, she would say quietly. Marcus had officially proposed to her a few months after the investment deal. The wedding was small, but elegant. Elena remembered the moment he placed the ring on her finger. She believed she was marrying the man she loved. She believed they were starting a life together. For a long time, everything seemed perfect. Marcus moved them into a larger mansion overlooking the city. The house had marble floors, tall windows, and a kitchen so large, Elena joked she needed a map to navigate it. One evening, she stood in that kitchen preparing dinner. Cooking had always been something she enjoyed, and Marcus loved her food. She placed the finished dish onto a plate and carried it toward Marcus's office. He was sitting behind his desk reviewing documents. You're still working? She asked. Marcus looked up. Always. Elena set the plate in front of him. I made your favorite. Marcus glanced at the dish. You didn't have to do that. Elena smiled. You say that every time. Marcus took a bite. He paused, then nodded. This is exactly how I like it. Elena folded her arms proudly. Of course it is. Marcus continued eating. You could open a restaurant with cooking like this. Elena laughed. Maybe one day. Marcus finished the plate quickly, then leaned back. You've done more for me than anyone else ever has. Elena smiled warmly. That's what marriage is. Marcus didn't respond. Instead, he returned his attention to the documents on his desk. Elena watched him for a moment. Then she walked around the desk and hugged him from behind. One day, she said softly, when your company becomes the biggest in the city, we'll look back at this moment. Finally, Marcus stared at the papers in front of him and laughed about how small everything once felt. Marcus finally spoke. Maybe. Weeks passed. Marcus grew busier. More meetings, more trips, more late nights. Sometimes Elena would wake up and realize Marcus hadn't come home at all. When she asked him about it, he would simply say, work. One evening, she finally confronted him. They were sitting in the living room when she spoke. Marcus, can we talk? Marcus looked up from his phone. What about? You've been distant. Marcus frowned slightly. I've been busy. I know that. Then what's the problem? Elena hesitated. I feel like I barely see you anymore. Marcus sighed. Elena, I'm running a company worth hundreds of millions. I understand that. Then you should understand why I'm working all the time. Elena looked down. I just miss you. Marcus rubbed his forehead. This is the price of success. Elena nodded slowly. I guess I just didn't expect success to feel this lonely. Marcus didn't reply. Instead, he stood up. I have another meeting. He walked toward the door. Elena sat there quietly after he left. Something about their relationship had changed. But she couldn't figure out what. Then came the night everything ended. Elena walked into Marcus's office carrying dinner. He placed the contract on the table and told her their marriage was over. Now Elena stood outside the mansion gates with a single suitcase beside her. The massive iron gates closed behind her with a loud metallic sound. The house she once called home looked distant and unfamiliar. She stared at it for several minutes. Then she whispered, How did everything fall apart so quickly? Her phone vibrated. It was her mother. Elena answered. Hello? Her mother's voice came through immediately. Elena, where are you? Elena hesitated. Outside. Outside where? Elena swallowed. Marcus's house. There was a pause. Then her mother sighed. What happened? Elena's voice cracked. He divorced me. Another pause. Then her mother said quietly, I warned you. Elena closed her eyes. Mom, I told you that man wasn't trustworthy. I loved him. Love doesn't make someone give away $5 million. Elena gripped the phone. I believed in him. Her mother replied bluntly, and now look what that belief cost you. Elena wiped her tears. I don't need this right now. Her mother sighed. Then come home. Elena hesitated. Home. The place she left when she married Marcus. I'll be there soon, she said quietly. 2 hours later, Elena walked through the front door of her childhood house. Her mother was sitting in the living room waiting. She looked up slowly. Elena. Elena placed her suitcase near the door. I have nothing left. Her mother leaned back. You gave him everything. Elena nodded. Yes. Her mother shook her head. That man ruined you. But the humiliation wasn't over. Within days, relatives began hearing about the divorce. Some came to visit. Others called. And none of the conversations were comforting. One aunt said bluntly, You were foolish. Another relative added, Who gives a man $5 million? Someone else laughed. I guess love really does make people stupid. Elena stopped answering calls after that. Days turned into weeks. She applied for jobs, but employers looked at her resume and saw nothing impressive. For the past year, she had been living as Marcus Hale's wife. She had no recent experience, no strong qualifications. Rejection after rejection followed. Then, one evening, her phone rang. It was The hospital. Elena Brooks? Yes. Your mother and grandfather have been admitted after an assault. Elena felt the world spin. What? They were attacked outside their home. Elena grabbed her keys immediately. I'm coming now. 30 minutes later, she rushed into the emergency ward. Her grandfather lay in a hospital bed with bandages wrapped around his head. Her mother's arm was in a sling. Elena's voice shook. What happened? Her mother looked exhausted. Some men attacked us. Elena frowned. Did they steal anything? Her grandfather spoke weakly. No, they just beat us. Elena's stomach tightened. Who would do something like that? Miles away, Marcus Hale stood inside his office, watching the city lights. His assistant entered the room. It's done, the assistant said quietly. Marcus nodded. Good. The assistant hesitated. Are you sure this was necessary? Marcus didn't look at him. She needs motivation. You mean pressure? Marcus turned slowly. Same thing. The assistant swallowed nervously. What if she refuses? Marcus picked up a file from his desk. Inside were Elena's financial records. Every account, every bill, every debt. Marcus placed the file down calmly. She won't refuse. Why are you so sure? Marcus looked toward the window. Because Elena Brooks has no other choice. And soon enough, she would be walking back into his house again. But this time, not as his wife, as his cook. Elena sat beside her grandfather's hospital bed, staring at the monitor that beeped steadily beside him. Her mother slept in a chair nearby, her injured arm wrapped in a sling. The doctor had already explained everything. The injuries were serious, but treatable. The problem was the cost. Elena looked down at the estimate the hospital had handed her earlier. The numbers felt unreal. Her savings were almost gone. The job applications she had sent out had all been rejected. She rubbed her forehead slowly. How am I supposed to pay for this? She whispered. Her phone suddenly vibrated in her hand. She looked down at the screen and froze. Marcus Hale. For a moment, she considered ignoring the call, but the hospital bill sitting on the table forced her to answer. She pressed the phone to her ear. Hello? Marcus's voice came through calm and controlled. Elena. She closed her eyes briefly. What do you want? Marcus replied without hesitation. I heard about your family. Elena's eyes opened. You heard? Yes. Her voice sharpened. How exactly did you hear about that? Marcus ignored the question. I assume the hospital bills are expensive. Elena's jaw tightened. You don't get to pretend you care. Marcus answered calmly. I don't. Elena said nothing. I don't. Marcus continued. But I do have a solution. Elena's stomach tightened. What solution? Marcus spoke slowly. Come back. Elena frowned. What? Come back to the house. Elena felt anger rising instantly. Are you insane? Marcus's tone stayed calm. I need a cook. Elena blinked in disbelief. You're joking. No. She laughed bitterly. You destroyed my life and now you want me to cook for you? Marcus replied bluntly. You're good at it. Elena gripped the phone tighter. Find someone else. Marcus paused, then spoke again. Elena. She stayed silent. Then he said the sentence he knew would trap her. I'll pay every hospital bill for your family. Elena's heart skipped. Marcus continued. Every treatment, every expense. Elena swallowed slowly. And in return? She asked quietly. You cook in my house. Elena's voice trembled with anger. You're disgusting. Marcus remained calm. Take the offer or don't. But the hospital won't wait forever, Elena whispered. You're blackmailing me. Marcus answered coolly. I'm helping you. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You're a monster, Marcus said. A car will pick you up tomorrow morning. Elena shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. I didn't agree. Marcus's final words came cold and certain. You will. Then the call ended. Elena lowered the phone slowly. For several minutes, she sat there without moving. Then she looked toward her grandfather lying weakly in the hospital bed. Her mother shifted in the chair, wincing in pain even in her sleep. Elena's shoulders dropped. I have no choice, she whispered. The next morning, a black car stopped outside the hospital. Elena stood near the entrance holding a small bag. The driver stepped out and opened the back door without saying a word. Elena hesitated before getting inside. The ride was quiet. When the car finally stopped, the familiar iron gates of Marcus's mansion stood in front of her. They slowly opened as the car approached. Elena felt a strange heaviness in her chest. The last time she had passed through those gates, she had believed she was entering her home. Now she felt like a stranger. The car stopped near the entrance. Elena stepped out slowly. The front door opened. Marcus stood there waiting. His expression was calm, unreadable. Elena walked toward him and stopped a few feet away. "I'm only here because of my family," she said. Marcus nodded once. "Of course." Elena looked straight at him. "This doesn't mean I forgive you," Marcus replied. "I didn't ask you to." Elena stepped past him and entered the house. Everything inside looked exactly the same. The marble floors, the wide staircase, the tall windows overlooking the city. But it didn't feel the same anymore. A voice suddenly echoed from the staircase. "Well, this should be interesting." Elena turned. A woman leaned against the railing, smiling with clear amusement. Vanessa Cole slowly walked down the stairs. Elena recognized her immediately. Vanessa had once been her adopted sister. Years ago, Elena's grandfather had taken Vanessa in from an orphanage. But Vanessa had disappeared one morning after money went missing from the house. Now she stood there wearing expensive clothes and a confident smile. "Hello, Elena," Vanessa said. Elena's expression hardened. "Vanessa." Vanessa crossed her arms. "I heard you were coming back." Elena said nothing. Vanessa stopped a few feet away. "You used to live here as the queen of the house." She tilted her head slightly. "Now you're the help." Elena answered calmly, "I'm not here for you." Vanessa laughed softly. "Of course not." She glanced at Marcus. "You hired her as the cook, right?" Marcus nodded. "Yes." Vanessa smiled wider. "How humiliating." Elena ignored the comment and walked toward the kitchen. The room was just as large as she remembered. Stainless steel counters, wide cabinets, expensive equipment. She placed her bag on the counter and took a slow breath. "Just focus," she whispered to herself. "This is temporary." She began cooking. That evening, Marcus sat at the dining table while Elena brought the dish out. She placed it in front of him without speaking. Marcus took a bite. His expression changed immediately. "This is exactly how I remember it," he said. Elena stayed silent. Vanessa watched the exchange carefully from across the table. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Later that night, Vanessa stood alone in the kitchen. She opened a cabinet and took out a container of salt. Her lips curled into a small smile. "Let's see how long you last," she murmured. The next evening, Elena prepared dinner again. The kitchen filled with the rich smell of spices and roasted meat. When she finished cooking, her phone buzzed. She stepped outside the kitchen briefly to answer the call from the hospital. The moment she left, Vanessa walked in quietly. She picked up the salt container and poured a heavy amount directly into Marcus's plate. Then she set the container back exactly where it had been. A few minutes later, Elena returned and carried the meal to the dining room. Marcus took a bite. Instantly, he spat it out. "What is this?" he snapped. Elena froze. Marcus pushed the plate away. "This is disgusting." Elena stared at the food in confusion. "What?" Marcus's voice rose. "It's completely salty." Elena shook her head. "That's impossible." Marcus glared at her. "Did you forget how to cook?" Elena said quickly. "I'll make another one." Marcus stood up. "Forget it." He walked away. Vanessa hid a small smile. The next day, the same thing happened again. Another ruined meal. Another angry reaction from Marcus. Elena grew more confused each time. "I know I didn't add that much salt," she muttered while staring at the dish in the kitchen. Vanessa watched quietly from the doorway. Days passed, and Marcus's patience grew thinner. One night, he slammed his fork on the table. "That's enough." Elena looked up. Marcus pointed at the plate. "This food is terrible," Elena said quietly. "I don't understand what's happening." Marcus shook his head. "I do." Elena waited. Marcus's voice turned cold. "You've lost your touch." Vanessa folded her arms with a satisfied look. Marcus stood up. "You're fired." Elena stared at him. "You're serious?" Marcus replied without emotion. "Leave." Elena felt the same crushing weight she had felt the day of the divorce. She slowly removed her apron and placed it on the counter. "Fine," she said quietly. But before she walked out of the kitchen, something caught her eye. A small black camera mounted near the cabinet. Elena paused. Her eyes moved across the room. Another camera near the ceiling. Then another. Elena said nothing, but her mind suddenly started connecting the pieces. And for the first time since she returned to the house, Elena Brooks began to understand exactly what someone had been doing behind her back. If you think Elena just discovered the truth about what's really happening in that kitchen, wait until you see what she does next. The cameras in Marcus's house may have just exposed more than anyone expected. But the real question is, who has been sabotaging her all along? If you're ready to see Elena fight back, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next episode reveals the moment everything starts to change.